LinkedIn is pretty amazing at helping you grow your small business. We cannot stop your new clients from emailing you at 3 a.m. We can help you sell, market, and hire in one place. We cannot help you be in 3 places at once. And while we can't help you organize your calendar, LinkedIn can help you land more clients so you have a calendar to organize. Grow your small business on LinkedIn. Learn more at linkedin.com/smallbusiness.
Study and play come together on a Windows 11 PC. And for a limited time, college students get the best of both worlds. Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started. Hello, and welcome to Extraordinary Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, and today I am going to be speaking with Sacha Hughes. Sacha graduated from the University of Sheffield with a degree in business studies before embarking on a 10-year career in financial services recruitment in London. Her debut novel, Love, Grief, and More Sex Than Pinot, a Bridget Jones meets Fleabag vibe, is inspired by her personal experiences in her mid to late 20s. With her second book from the Soho Summer series, Soho Summers versus Love, Life, the Universe, out for the end of the year. Sacha writes from her kitchen table in Poole, Dorset, fueled by strong coffee, common roots cacao, daily meditations, and the occasional Pinot Grigio with close friends. She lives with her 2 treasured children, Rose and Cato, and their much adored and decidedly entitled black and white cat Pickle. That is until a mischievous little black kitten, Zuma, arrived and promptly promoted himself to chief editor. First of all, Sacha, what a fun bio. I love it. And also, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so very much. I'm so excited to be here. It just feels such a joy. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And when we talked in our coffee chat, I felt like it just felt such like a great vibe. And I really knew that this would be something wonderful to talk with you about, because this series, as I told you, is about building an extraordinary life. And I really feel like that's what you are doing. So before we talk about what you have created, I want to talk about who you were before you created it all, because I think that's where the story begins, right? From what I've discovered about you, you described your 20s and early 30s as a time of real recklessness and loss, navigating grief after losing your mom, a high-pressure career in London recruitment, divorce, and single parenting. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, you found your way back to yourself. So with that being said, can you take us back to that season of your life and share with us what it actually felt like to be in the middle of it, the messy middle, and what first cracked open the possibility that there was another way to live?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I really was a queen of self-sabotage for years. I was very lost. I was desperately hurting after the painful departure of my mother from cancer when I was 24 years old. I was the youngest of 4 siblings. I was in a relationship at the time, but it wasn't a significant one. And my elder siblings, they were all married, children, stable life situations. And I just felt I was so sad and so lost. And I was working in recruitment and it was stressful, long hours, work hard, play hard culture, very sort of male dominated as well. And so I used to gravitate to the pub often with my colleagues at lunchtimes. We'd drink to celebrate we'd just made a deal. We would drink to commiserate if we'd lost a placement. And booze became my painkiller of choice at that time, Pinot Grigio in particular. But it did spiral even worse than that. And booze then sort of led me to cocaine. And so I wouldn't just go to the after parties. I was always desperately as well looking for the love of my life. My parents had had a very successful, loving marriage. So I'd witnessed that throughout my whole childhood. And I just had this firm belief that I would absolutely share that same experience with someone. And that until I did, I would never feel complete or happy on my own. And so that compounded with the loss of my mum. I had all the love I had for my mother. I didn't know where to put it. And so I was desperately looking for the guy. So I would go out after work. I'd go to networking events, all in the name of the corporate networking, environment. But I was there to look for my husband. I was never there to do the job per se. And so I would end up, because I was so lost, because I was often drunk, because then cocaine would be involved, I would fall for all the lines, And I see now it wasn't necessarily the guy's fault. It was the energy I was giving off. And it all stemmed from this severe lack of self-worth, self-love. I was so different back then to who I am now. I did end up meeting who I thought was the love of my life. And it was early 30s, I got married. But when I was 6 months pregnant with our second child, we'd only been married for a year and all the trust in the relationship had gone. So with two gorgeous children, and I hadn't been drinking a lot by then anyway, because I'd been a hands-on mother and, been pregnant and various so forth. But it was really then where the breakdown at that point became my breakthrough. So now I'm grateful for that pain and suffering, because I don't know if I'd been cracked open so much, whether I would have then been in such a position to let the light in. And as a mother with two gorgeous children, there was no way I was going to self-sabotage and sink like I did when my mum died. It was really the time for me to think, right, I am going to rise. And so for about 5 years, as the kids were asleep next to me, every night I would read as many self-help books that I could, as many spiritual books as I could, listen to loads of podcasts on the matter. It was all the things about trusting your intuition, the power of gratitude, present moment living, letting go, forgiveness of yourself, forgiveness of others. And suddenly I just felt like with those 5 years, and also I was stone cold sober. I didn't touch a drop of alcohol during that time either. And I felt like I just had this paradigm shift. It was as if by reading loads of these books, this is podcasts, all the messages, lots of them were quite repetitive, but it was great because they were saying it in a different way. And slowly but surely it started to stick to me like glue. And I could sense my inner world changing. And I began to realize, like, all this suffering that I have gone through, if I lean into the lessons of that suffering, if I really try to understand why I have had those experiences, then slowly but surely, by leaning into the lessons as opposed to clinging on so tightly to the hurt, I would then be able to hopefully become the alchemist and turn those wounds into wisdom and the scars into strength. And I became like an avid archaeologist at the time. I was just digging deeper and deeper and deeper with this incessant desire to understand myself. Who am I? And yeah, it's been phenomenal, actually. So that was started about 10 years ago. But the last 3 years has then been through the writing of my Soho Summers series. And it's been the most therapeutic, fun, amazing fun, but also so heartfelt. I have sobbed my heart out because the character in that book, she loses her mother too. So with an older, wiser hat on, I have been able to finally let go of the pain of my gorgeous mum dying. And I had clung on to that pain for 20 years. So writing has just been an absolute gift for me. And yeah, here I am now. I feel I'm in a good place. I'm not lost anymore. I know who I am. And yeah, over to you.
Yeah, I love that you gave us like that really, broad world view look at like how you started, like where you started, just a little bit of your history, right? Because I think a lot of the time when we talk to other people, we don't really get to have as big of a window unless, like there's those moments, and I'm sure you probably had them where you just sat with someone and you said, I feel like I've known you my whole life, and you just could talk for hours, right?
Yeah.
I've had those moments and it's like, oh, this is like so great. So I just love the fact that you were able to give us this whole picture. Because I really want the audience to really kind of come into your world and get to know you a little bit before we talk about other things that you do, which is
Yeah.
one of the things that I wanted to lean into as we started talking about it. And one of the things I really love and I think is so powerful about your story is that this arc from that self-sabotage to self-love, right? It's it's just what it is. We go through life and we think, well, this is what a great successful life looks like, and being a part of that, until at some point you're like, this doesn't really feel like me. And I think that arc that you is one that a lot of women are living right now without even knowing how to name it, because I think there's a lot of women out there right now. We still live in this hustle culture. I know people think that, oh, some people say like they like being in the hustle culture. But for me, I think there's one thing about going after what you want, and then there's the other where it's like hustle, hustle, hustle to the point where you don't even know who you are anymore, what you're doing, if you're even doing what you love, right? So I want to ask you a question about self-sabotage and what it looks like from the inside. And what did it really take for you to finally recognize the patterns that you had been caught in and to choose something different? Because I know you gave us a little bit of a glimpse, but what actually just like did that for you?
That I feel like it's been quite a slow. So the last 10 years has been wholly dedicated to healing for me. I feel like it's been quite a slow, it's not been linear, and it's been, yes, I'd say quite a slow journey at times. I mean, I've been a hands-on mother. Um, but I feel now, as in, it's easy to say that I was self-sabotaging a lot just because of the pain of my mother, which was hideous. I mean, there were times when I honestly, if I could have died that day when she passed away, I would have done. And so many times I thought about jumping in front of a train and taking an overdose. And, there were hideous, dark, dark black years. And no one knew because I was really good at putting the clown face on, and I was the party girl. And I did that to cover up the pain. What I'm understanding now, because I think we do all evolve, don't we? And our awareness rises. That's why we're here. I feel like I have always kind of been destined for this spiritual path. I feel like I have had a spiritual awakening. I feel like that's happened within the last 3 years. I now can kind of join the dots as to why I was a very shy child. I was a very sensitive child. I used to wet the bed until I was 12, which was mortifying because I could never go to parties or, Girl Scout things or anything. I would always have to say no. I bit my fingernails until they were red raw for years, until my teenage years. I hated parties and I was very shy. I think I said that I was very shy. And I just had this inherent belief that I wasn't enough. I think now, that's coupled with then my mum dying. And also I did when I was a teenager, and I got into drinking a little bit, not much at all, just, messing, experimenting as kind of late teens do. But I loved the fact that it made me more confident. And so it felt like I was stepping into a more powerful version of me. And I think when mum died, the alcohol just took over. And I feel the last 3 years, I'm realizing that I feel like I am a very sensitive soul, and I do read energy quite a lot. And actually, I probably didn't fit in so much to society back then. I always felt like maybe there was something a bit wrong with me. Why was I different? Why didn't I want to go to the parties? I would go when I'd had a drink. I could be fine when I've had a drink, but my natural state was always, I don't like crowds. I don't like loud places. I prefer solitude. And the lovely thing is, the more I'm getting to know myself, I say no to so much stuff now. Like, my social circle's got so small. I've got very good boundaries. I'm very, very protective of my energy. I only say yes if it's a wholehearted and it comes from my center. I love spending time on my own. I'm alone and never lonely. I'm meditating every day. I've been doing that nonstop for sort of the last 5 years. And I feel like my book has been very guided because of that. And yeah, I just have this real sense of inner peace now. And I like who I am, and I honor who I am, and I don't try to be any different anymore. I don't try to fit in. And also, when I was in the corporate world, I'd be at these meetings and I could never understand why my colleagues would be getting so enthusiastic about KPIs and strategy and, targets. And I'd be sat there thinking, what's wrong with me? Why is this not motivating me? I just thought there was something really, really wrong with me. So I'd have to pretend to be interested. Now I realize I was never born for that corporate environment. Now I'm doing this writing, and I can write about feelings. And by writing about the feelings, I'm processing the feelings, and I'm really understanding myself so much more. This is my environment. This is where I'm thriving. all the other stuff, I was in survival mode, and it was social conditioning. It was all what was expected of me. And I didn't realize I even had a choice. So,
Yeah. Well, one of the things I have a follow up to that, I was just curious, was there a hard part to that? I mean, it's easy now because you've been doing the work, right? I always
mm,
feel like self development is a lifetime lifestyle choice. It's not just like, oh, 1 year I'm going to read self development books. I'm going to do all of this stuff and voila, I'm going to be this new version of me. I still feel like it's that there's still that everyday work it's not necessarily work, but it's more about just choosing to show up a different way every single day. So what was the hardest part of shifting from the old way of Sasha, the moment where you decided like this, I'm choosing me? Was there anything that felt terrifying for you and what was like the most necessary? So I think I understand what the most necessary thing was is that you needed to make changes in your life, but was there anything terrifying about that? Because I always know, like, I'll just give you an example. For me, when I realized back in 2017 that I was burning out from the corporate job that I was in, because I've been in law for a long time, working as a paralegal, and my hours there was just so much time that I was spending in work in that environment that I felt like I had no life. And in March of 2018, we ended up moving from where we were currently living in California. We moved to Las Vegas. And I didn't really have an entire plan worked out, but I just made the conscious decision. I'm choosing me. I'm leading my full-time position. I don't know where I'm going to land. I don't have a safety net, but I have an idea of what it could look like if you know, things work out the way I'm hoping that they will. And my husband was on board with that. He said, like, whatever happens, we're going to make it work. So that was terrifying to me because I'm going from like this place where, it's my job, it's my main source of income. I had to figure out like what was I going to do if I wasn't going to work in that environment, working full time in an office environment. It scared me, but it also as much as it was terrifying, it was really the most necessary thing for me because at the time I really felt I was headed towards the grave. Like I literally felt that if I didn't make changes to my life and my lifestyle because of how much I was working, that I was going to be 6 feet under within a year. And that was scary to me. That scared me more than the possibility of not knowing where I was going to land if I said to them, hey, I'm leaving, which I did. I went back and, we ended up finding a place to live. And then I went in and I told them, listen, I'm giving you 2 weeks notice. I'm moving, but I still want to be able to support you. And we were able to figure, things out. And I still support them in a role where I'm my own boss and I provide them a certain amount of hours every week to support them still. And I've been doing that for 8 years. But if I hadn't done that, I don't know what would have happened. Like I said, I just had this knowing that I wasn't headed for something good. So for you, was there a moment like that for you that you realized that if I don't change, you know, this isn't going to work? Like, what was that for you?
do you know, the moments, it wasn't actually work related because my ex-husband and I, we always agreed that I would be the primary caretaker for the children up until they started school. And because I've been in my recruitment role for over 10 years, it was a shareholder scheme and the maternity pay was quite good. I was able to exit with a fairly good sort of leaving package, which meant that for a little while, finances would be just about okay and we could live off of my ex-husband's salary. So the time came when it was the scary, really scary decision, as in, just do I leap or do I stay in this awful situation, which I know is killing me inside, or do I take a leap of faith with the hope that it can only get better? That was with filing for a divorce with my husband, because that meant leaving the perceived safety of the family home because I had given up my career. So he was the main breadwinner. We had just bought what was meant to be our forever family home. We'd just spent a year doing it up and we were living in rental accommodation. We didn't even live there as a couple. It was then straight onto the market. And so that it was terrifying because it was all the unknown and the children were only 2 or 1.5 and 3.5. So they were really young. And I hadn't then been working for maybe 4 years or 3.5 years. And I felt very unemployable because I had that belief of I'm no good and I don't have self-worth. And because also we'd been in a fairly toxic marriage relationship, that sort of mirrored those beliefs to me. But I knew that if the prospect of staying in the marriage actually became far worse than the prospect of going. And the reason for that was because my intuition wasn't then just whispering at me, it was shouting that I had to leave. Because if I didn't leave, I would be abandoning myself. I would be abandoning my inner truth. I would be I felt living a lie. And I did not want my gorgeous children to be brought up in an environment where they would see bickering or their mummy would get smaller and smaller and smaller, tiptoeing on the tiniest eggshells or biggest eggshells around the guy. And that for them to think that that was normal, particularly because I've been brought up in such a loving household and I saw a beautiful marriage. I knew what it was meant to be like. And I don't blame my ex-husband at all. We have a very amicable relationship and I'm delighted we met because I got my two gorgeous children, it's a gift. And he's been the greatest teacher for me. I've learned so much through that relationship. Not that he knows he has been, but when you look inwards, instead of pointing all the fingers at him or the finger at him for all the breakdown of the marriage, I chose to look at the three fingers pointing back at me and sort of take some control back and think, what have I done to contribute to this breakdown of this marriage? What needs to change in me so that I never, ever, ever face this awful experience ever again? And yeah, so it was really scary because I didn't have an income at the time. We had to go, we probably spent a year and a half through the courts haggling over finances. I didn't know where I was going to be living, but you know what? I'm so proud of myself because that walking away from that has led me to who I am today. And that was all through tuning in and following my heart and trusting my intuition. And I haven't stopped doing that since. And it's never let me down. So,
Yeah, I love that. And so, like as I said, I just wanted to get your take on that because for me, like I said, a lot of the time we don't think about those things, right? Like we just think about, okay, well, this is a situation and this is where I'm going, but we don't think about like there's the other things. There are still those underlying fears. Like you said, you were leaving the security. Most people want to feel they want to belong, they want to feel secure, especially when you're in relationships. And so when you lose that part of your relationship, I think a lot of it is that we sometimes forget that we need to be able to actually be whole in ourselves. Like I don't know if you know the term happy wife, happy life. I kind of push back on that term just a little bit. And the reason why I do is because I don't feel that it's my husband's duty. It's not something that should be burdened with, and I don't guess I wouldn't want to say the word burden, but I don't feel it's his responsibility to make me happy, and it's not my responsibility to make him happy. We have to choose happiness. We have to choose to be happy of who we are, and we bring that energy to the relationship, which makes the relationship stronger. That's how I look at the happy wife, happy life. I feel like that it's not really necessarily fair to put all of the responsibility on the man to make the woman happy. Because if he could be doing everything, he could be doing everything possible. And if she chooses not to be happy, there's nothing he can do, and vice versa. If a woman's trying to make a man happy and he chooses not to, there's nothing that can be done. So I feel it's a conscious choice to be happy in who we are, like you and I both done, do the work for ourselves, to help ourselves to feel the best that we can on a daily basis. So we bring that energy to our relationships. And that to me is what helps to strengthen relationships. So anyways, thank you so much for your response. I really wanted to get your response on that. When we first talked about the podcast, as I said earlier, we talked about the series for June being about women who make bold, defining moves, not from pressure or proving, but from a knowing, like a client knowing that it's time to move. Like in this, like you were saying, you had that one moment really that, okay, it's not just affecting me anymore. I have children. It's really important. So for you, I feel the bold move was really turning the rawest, most vulnerable chapters of your life into something that could give other women permission to be human. Because I think that's where we always feel like we're alone, right? Other people have gone through things like this, but we always feel like when it's us, we feel like we're alone in it. So when you decided that there's more for you, I know we've talked a little bit about it, but how did you stay grounded in your why? And then the second part to my question is, what would you say to the woman who's sitting on a story that she's afraid to tell? Because I feel you were able to take your lived experience and put it into words. And I think there's a lot of women out there that have a story to tell and maybe feel like, oh, well, no one will care about my story. But she doesn't realize there might be a woman out there right now that would read her story and say, oh my gosh, thank you so much for saying this. I felt that way. I thought I was alone in that way of feeling that no, I didn't think anyone else would feel this way. And so what would you say to that woman too? So I have that two-part question. Your why, of how you stay grounded, and then what would you say to the woman who's sitting on a story, she wants to tell it, but she's afraid to tell it?
Yeah, I think my why is I feel like I've been very lucky and fortunate because for such a long time since being on this sort of healing journey, I have been really asking the powers that be to guide me to my purpose. Because without my gorgeous children, I always just felt like I just didn't worthless. I haven't got a purpose. Like who the hell am I? I felt like I was pretty useless at my job, but that's because at the time, I was always looking for the husband and I was hurting because of in excruciating pain because my mum had died. And so I didn't show up properly to work. And so I was always looking for this elusive purpose. Anyway, I feel like my why arrived. Like I say, I was very lucky. I went on holiday a few years ago and I always knew I had a story inside me because I knew that my self-sabotage years could make for very entertaining reading. If by throwing in some humor there and sort of making, why are they so funny because they hurt so much, sort of going down that train of thought. But I didn't have the happily ever after. And so I thought no one would ever want to read it. And then I went away and I met someone and a few energy healers who I have been seeing over the years have said independently they feel very much like it was a twin flame sort of a relationship because I wasn't expecting to meet this gentleman and suddenly we spent a whole week together in Croatia. He was Croatian and I had this most mind-blowing experience, and when I came back from that I just knew I had to start writing. And it was literally I didn't want to be sad that this week what felt like a honeymoon was over. Logistically, there was no way we could ever be together, and for family reasons too. And so I just started to write. And suddenly it was as if I knew my purpose because I then suddenly had this happily ever after in this book that I was starting to create, which was that Soho Summers then, she meets this guy and she finds her purpose. And it was just suddenly I felt like everything was falling into place. And so then I realized I was like, I'm going to write a book inspired by that experience with that gentleman. And then I was like, I'm going to write a book inspired by my experience of the self-sabotage years. And slowly but surely, this Soho Summers series came to life. And I've loved it. And the why it almost hasn't even been a why. It's been like giving birth to a third baby. I have never had writer's block. For a long time, I'd be getting up at 4:00 in the morning. I couldn't wait to get to my laptop. Like these ideas are just pinging in my head as soon as I'd wake up and I was down to the laptop and getting it down. And it's been just incredible and it's flowed. The right people have come along at the right time, the right opportunities. If you told me 3 years ago that I was going to be writing this novel, that I've just got my debut one out, but the second one's on the way, I'd be on podcasts like this, that, I'd be on radio stations, that I'd start getting visible, I would have told you you're bonkers because I was so used to being a healing hermit. And now I feel ready to become a visible person who is doing the inner work, who has done the inner work and is ready to share some of her learnings. And so I reckon if there's someone there who has got a story inside them and they're so passionate about it, like when you just have that passion, any fear, for me personally anyway, the fear just hasn't existed, which again has been quite unbelievable, really, given how often I've been so fear-based and never thought that I was good enough or that I could ever really accomplish anything. I haven't had fear with this. I've just got on with it and done it. And so if you have that story inside you and even for yourself, you change as a person once you're writing and you see your self-worth. You see what you're capable of. For me, it's not been, this book initially probably wasn't even going to be written to be published. It was more a healing journey for me and to enjoy the experience that I had with that guy and to commit it to memory. I didn't want it to just, the reason, season, lifetime. I wanted that experience to be a lifetime thing. I wanted to put it to paper almost just for my own records. But now here I am and it's, with the help of editors and proofreaders and things, it's now is a publishable novel. And I'm almost speechless, actually. I can't quite believe I've done it, but it's just felt right. And I think if you've got that in you, if that's everyone has an inner spark, an inner genius in them. And so if you've got a story in you and it's dying to get out, you'll be doing the readers a disservice if you don't get it out, because there will be people out there who will really resonate with your words, and you will, give them hope, inspire, and also you will really enjoy the journey and come out a different person by the end of it.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things I love about your approach, though, too, is the way that you use humor to open doors that shame tends to keep closed. Like people
Mm,
can look and frown upon women who are, you had two young children and you're not with your husband. And it's like, why did you leave? A lot of people can place a lot of, blame and judgment on something like that. But I think there's
mm,
something really special and really incredible about how laughter can create that safety in a way that serious sometimes can't really do. We can't
mm,
always be serious about things. Sometimes we just have to be able to laugh at those things as serious as they are. So
mm.
why do you believe humor is such a powerful tool? I guess it's great for healing. I think it is for helping women really talk openly about the things they've been taught to hide.
Yeah, I guess it gives them a like, by bringing the humor in, you can speak more honestly, can't you? You kind of share your vulnerabilities a bit more under the guise of humor in a way, and it makes it more socially acceptable. And with the writing of my book, my mum was really well, I thought she was really funny. She was great. She had such a big heart and a huge sense of humor. And so I almost wanted to honor her a lot by writing this book and putting, if I could say something in a certain way, why not say it in the funny way? For my own benefit as well, because I wanted to laugh. I've been laughing so much writing this book. I really have, like roaring with laughter. And people have been thinking I'm bonkers and weird because I haven't been going out at all. But in truth, I've been having the best time at my laptop, like either just roaring with laughter or then, like I said, or sobbing. But I've laughed so much writing this book. And I feel like that's infectious and it comes across on the pages. But I could only write it with humor now after all these years, because when I was in the self-sabotage thing, it didn't feel very funny at the time. I could put on the clown face, but yeah, it wasn't a very enjoyable place to be at all. But I'm hoping that by injecting the humor, I will be able to reach out to lots of young 20-year-olds. They might laugh. They'll have the things in that book will resonate with them. They might identify parts of themselves in the lead character, Soho Summers. And fingers crossed, as much as they're laughing, they will also hopefully not make the same mistakes that she did. And it will raise their awareness to how easily she gave her worth away to guys, to self-worth away to guys. And that leads me back actually to, you remember when I was talking about my ex-husband and I said I wanted to look at the three fingers pointing back at me? One of the biggest revelations I had was that I did not love myself at all in that relationship. And it goes to what you said. And so I was expecting him to provide the love and the happiness for me. And so what a huge expectation I put on him. That's hideous. Like no one should have that burden, you said that word. And so, yeah, so I'm not in a relationship right now, but I'm hoping very much that when I do, it's the soulmate kind rather than a wound mate, because I'm coming at it from a soul level as opposed to a person who's full of wounds and is looking for someone to complete them. But yeah, sorry, going back to the humor, I think humor has been, it's just such a gift, and it keeps me going. And yeah, and it's a
I love
universal
that.
language, isn't it? It's
Oh, yeah, of course. Laughter, they say, is the best medicine. You
yeah.
just you just start to laugh. I mean, even smiling changes the
Mm,
whole, your whole like body language when you smile. I mean, think about when someone smiles at you and you walk past them, or you smile at someone, it can change how a person feels, like, because it's like they feel seen. I don't know. That's how I
so
look at it,
good.
you
Yeah,
know? Yeah.
like
Well,
they feel.
yeah,
Mm.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I said, like they feel seen. And when you have that eye contact, like we did just then, when we're smiling at each other, you
Yeah,
feel the connection and your heart just
of
opens
course.
up a little bit, doesn't it? And then you feel like you'll be
Exactly.
more open with your, sharing things with each other. And yeah, and that can
Yeah.
come from just a smile or a shared joke.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. One of the things that you shared with me was that the greatest love story you can ever have is the one with yourself. I know you
Mm.
talked a little bit briefly about it just a few minutes ago, but can you share what that actually looks like for you? And what does loving yourself actually look like in practice? Because I know this is probably one of the hardest things that women who are hard on themselves can do.
I I honestly, I feel like it has been one of the biggest lessons ever for me to learn is the self-love. And it's only really since writing this book that I feel like I'm really am cracking it. And I feel right, because the character in the book, I see how much she gave all of her worth away to the guys, and it makes me cringe now. I just think, oh my goodness, if only you knew how your own worth, if only you took your power back, if only you could realize that you were good enough and you're worthy and you're enough just on your own and you don't need to have validation from these men or the connection. She was always looking for that soulmate connection. And she thought that touch meant that. So being in bed with one of the guys meant love. It doesn't. It just, so her, I feel like through writing the book, I personally have really seen what I'm capable of. I'm proud of myself. I've done the healing around my mum, letting my mum go. I really do feel I've fallen in love with the main character, Soho Summers. I've seen how she's stumbled through real similar sticky situations that I once did, and she always got back up. And she was only ever coming at life from with an open heart and wanting love and wanting to be loved, wanting to love someone and wanting to be loved. It was never malicious. It was never that she felt like she wanted to be a tart and going around sleeping with all these guys. It was never that. It was because she was looking for someone to complete her, to make her feel worthy. And so I've fallen in love with the lead character, and I have realized that my happily ever after, it isn't. I don't need a guy at the end of the book. It's me. It's the author falling in love with herself. And and that our greatest, like as you just said, the greatest love story is the one with ourselves. Because if you get that right, then you will always then be coming at every other relationship from a position of wholeness and a position of worth. And so they will then mirror that back to you. There'll be the respect there, the loyalty, the love, because you're offering that. So I think
Mhm.
self love is the main thing. Like I
Yeah, no,
remember reading a Wayne Dyer thing. This was a long time ago, and he was talking about squeezing an orange. And when you squeeze an orange, what comes out? Orange juice. And if the orange was full of hate or self doubt or I don't know, hideous limiting beliefs, then you squeeze it, and that's what's going to come out. So I'm working to fill myself up with the love, so that when I squeeze or if I'm triggered or whatever, I'm overflowing with it, and that's all that comes out. Yeah.
okay. I love that. No, I love that. Well, I have a final question for you. You've taken grief, you've taken heartbreak, divorce, single parenting, years of self-sabotage, and you turned all of that into wisdom, into stories, into a life that is fully and unapologetically your own. And so
Mm.
for the women who are listening in today, ones who are somewhere in the middle of their own messy, unfinished chapters, and they're wondering if they'll ever find their way through, what do you want them to walk away believing is possible for them?
I would say what has really, really, really helped me has been sitting in silence for sometimes just 10 minutes up to 20 minutes every single day and just tuning into my heart space. And obviously thoughts and things come up, but what I have found by doing that is it's almost like I'm plugging myself into the universal socket, and somehow I get charged up with this universal wisdom, whatever it is, the great creator. And any problems in my life, or it just makes my intuition louder. I get a better connection with it, and be that because it's my higher self or my soul's coming through. But I found once I started doing that, I got more clarity as to what I needed to change in my life, maybe what relationships needed changing, what better boundaries I needed to do, what things actually really did light me up, not things that I was doing because I was hoping to get permission or validation from someone else, but what actually worked for me. So it all comes, I would say to them, just try to really tune into you. Just think about you. Your heart matters. You matter. What's on your priority list today? You should be on that priority list. And everything is inside. Your heart's the biggest compass for you. So even if it sounds ridiculous, follow it and see what happens.
I totally agree. Well, Sasha, I have to say, I really loved the conversation so much. It was so good. What you brought today isn't just a story, it's permission for every woman who's listening in to stop pretending that her mess is something to be ashamed of and to start seeing it as the very thing that's actually shaping her into who she's always meant to become. So the idea of what I love is the idea of the greatest love story that you'll ever have is the one with yourself. I've heard a lot of people say things like this in this space, like say things about self-love in this space, but that one's going to really stick with me. I really love that. Just because for me, I believe that too. I feel like that was the turning point for me, even in my self-development journey, was learning to love the woman staring back at me in my reflection without judgment, without criticism, without saying like, but I would be better if I did this. Instead, just being able to say, I love you as you are. And I know just what you said today, all around, especially around that, is really going to, I feel, stick with every woman who's hearing it today. So thank you so much for coming here with your honesty, your humor, for being so amazing. I've loved our conversation. And yes, I'm just so happy that you said yes to being on the show. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind of you. What a lovely introduction and a lovely ending and a gorgeous chat in between. Thank you. It really has been golden to be on, and I'm very honored. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And to our listeners, if you'd like to connect with Sacha directly, get your hands on her debut novel, Love, Grief, and More Sex and Pinot, and her new summer series coming out. You can find her contact information and links in the show notes. Remember, your messy chapters are not evidence that you're broken. They're evidence that you're human. And the woman who has stumbled, grieved, gotten it gloriously wrong, and chosen herself anyway, that woman's a force to be reckoned with. That woman is you, and you're exactly where you need to be, building something real, something honest, and something that's entirely and beautifully yours. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time. Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.